Benson Ajisegiri, a fellow of the Nigeria Society of Engineers, also a fellow of the Nigeria Association of Hydrogeologists and Hydrologists. I have had over 35 years experience in the water sector of Nigeria, and as a utility reform expert, I have done quite a number of, I've handled a number of projects for the federal government of Nigeria. I have been able to lead a number of initiatives in Nigeria, beginning with the National Water Rehabilitation Project, which I participated in for so many years in the country before we initiated the reform program that is still currently being implemented in Nigeria. I worked for the Federal Ministry of Water Resources and retired as a Director of Water Supply and Public-Private Partnership. And during my sojourn as a director, I was able to bring up a number of initiatives which have still currently been implemented in the country, beginning with the rural water supply and small towns, in which we have initiated a program we call Partnership for Expanded Water Supply and Sanitation under the able leadership of the Minister of Water Resources, Engineer Suleiman Adamu. This program is a program that is meant to serve not only the rural areas, but the small towns. As at the time I was leaving, more than 18 states have keyed into the project, and they're currently implementing that project. I've also led the initiative on the Clean Nigeria Use the Toilet, which happened when I led a delegation to India to look at the way they are cleaning India. And by the time we came back, we brought up a strategy which was approved by the minister and is currently being implemented. And as at date, I believe a number of local governments are going off the open defecation in Nigeria. And it is hoped that at no time all the local governments in Nigeria will be open defecation free. I've also had the privilege of initiating the water supply sector reform, which is a program that is meant to accelerate water supply services in the urban areas of Nigeria, as well as turning around the institutions that are operating the water supply schemes in the country. Before then, the effort has always been concentrated on physical rehabilitation works as well as infrastructure, without looking at the institutions that are operating the schemes. But with the initiative that we brought forth, we now have to do what they call institutional reform as well as capacity building, which are meant to turn around the water supply situation and make it sustainable in the country. In that process, had experience with working on a number of issues which brought in all the 36 states of the nation as well as the FCT, and also had close contact, a working relationship with more than 18 of the 36 state governments. I had a number of initiatives also that we have brought forth through workshops and conferences, which are meant to share information, to educate, and as well as to make the water supply agencies of Nigeria to appreciate how best to do their work for sustainable water supply services. I've also had the privilege of contributing to a number of international workshops and conferences. As a matter of fact, I serve in the United Nations Advisory Group on Water Supply that gave birth to the SDG target 6.1 and 6.2 and the entire water sector target under the SDG, which was in there during the MDG. And with that, water has been given prominence in the world. That happened in 2014 when we had a series of workshops in Washington. I've also had a privilege of participating in a number of associations, international associations. The African Water Supply Association had the privilege of contributing to a number of forums that was organized by them as the General Secretary of the Nigeria Water Supply Association. I have led, the Nigerian delegation many times to participate in a number of such fora where we were able to showcase Nigeria and, of course, attract some funds to Nigeria. I've worked with a number of international agencies who have keyed into some of the initiatives that we brought forth in the sector, initiatives on utility reform, initiatives on service delivery, initiatives on capacity building. In the process, World Bank has been a major contributor, and been supported by African Development Bank as well as other international agencies that are working in the sector. Now coming to inequalities in the water supply, sanitation and hygiene services. It's a major issue that needs to be tackled. As a matter of fact, and that is why SDG 10 came to be. SDG 10 has to do with inequalities, tackling inequalities, in the world. It is number one, has to come from the wash, services, because this is where the issues of inequalities came up when we were discussing, under the auspices of the United Nations, conference, and then the idea of making it a full-fledged, target, which came as a goal number 10, came up, and it is still quite evident and quite prevalent in the water sector, because issues of inequalities, with that we look at, it affects gender inequality. It has affects even physically challenged people, and of course it has to do with economy, poverty. The poor nations, are the nation that has to suffer more when it comes to the issue of water services, which they do not have. Why? Because of the poor economy that has been operated. So in the area of inequalities, it's a major issue that now governments need to look critically into. If you come into the country, you will see that efforts are mostly concentrated in urban areas, because we have come, from the colonial era, where in those days, the real major waterworks are meant to serve government reserve areas. And then that had been the idea that we have brought with ourselves, and then forgetting, the poor and the disadvantaged people that are in the society. But this is giving way now, because the policy is now being funded on leave no one behind, because that is just the major goal of the SDG. So it is important that we ensure that those that are economically or physically disadvantaged or gender, are brought into bear in our policies, which federal government has imbibed, federal government of Nigeria. And not only that, in the planning for the work services, there's need to ensure that no one is disadvantaged, so that everyone will have access to water supply, sanitation, and hygiene at the target date of 2030 under the SDG. It is important also that in the program execution, that there's no one that is left behind. We should not just concentrate on just male dominance, in the execution of project. We should also bring female execution to be part of the execution, as well as in the operation. The operation also is very important. This is where you find that most cases there's inequality, because we are coming from the mindset that only male can operate, water schemes. But today you have female that are far better, than even men in the operation of water supply schemes. So these are some of the areas where we have to tackle, inequalities in the water services. I've talked about our policy, about our plan, about our execution, about our operation. In all of these areas, we have to ensure that even in our design, we need to ensure that we design schemes that will not only favor those that are physically able. The physically disabled people also should be able to, on their own, serve themselves in the water supply, sanitation, and hygiene schemes that are put in place at any area. There's nothing wrong in ensuring that there are handrails that are constructed and included, in all those water supply, sanitation, and hygiene infrastructure, so that the people that are physically challenged can on their own go to use them, as well as even making them to benefit from some of the schemes. If a water supply scheme is completed, a small water supply scheme, nothing is wrong in training the physically challenged people, the female in the society, to handle them under the operation of schemes that will make those schemes to last, for a long time. I believe the issue of inequality is still prevalent, and it's one of the areas that needs to be tackled. Thank you very much.